What separates the person who builds a billion-dollar empire from the one who struggles to pay rent? What's the difference between the athlete who dominates for decades and the one who peaks for a single season? What distinguishes the entrepreneur who creates multiple successful ventures from the one who fails repeatedly? Most people think it's talent. They believe some people are just born with special abilities, lucky genetics, or the right connections. But that's a lie. A comforting lie that keeps average people average because it gives them an excuse to stay exactly where they are. The real difference isn't what you can see. It's not their background, their resources, or even their skills. The real difference is invisible. It's happening right now between your ears. It's the way they think. Elite performers don't just think differently. They think at a completely different level. They process information differently. They make decisions differently. They handle pressure differently. They view failure differently. They approach problems differently. And most importantly, they think about themselves differently. This isn't motivational fluff. This is cognitive science. This is psychology. This is the measurable, observable difference between the mindset of champions and the mindset of everyone else. And here's the most important part. It's learnable. Your mind right now is either your greatest asset or your biggest liability. It's either propelling you toward extraordinary success or keeping you trapped in mediocrity. And the difference between these two outcomes isn't luck, it's mental programming. Every thought you think, every belief you hold, every internal story you tell yourself is either moving you closer to elite performance or further away from it. There is no neutral ground. Your mind is either optimized for winning or it's optimized for losing. There's no in-between. Most people go through life with a mind that's been programmed for average. They think average thoughts, make average decisions, and get average results. Then they wonder why they're not winning. They wonder why opportunities pass them by. They wonder why other people seem to have all the luck. But elite performers know something that average people don't. Success isn't about what happens to you. It's about how your mind processes what happens to you. It's about the internal software you're running, the mental operating system that determines how you interpret every situation, every challenge, every opportunity. Right now, as you're listening to this, your mind is either running software that's designed for excellence or software that's designed for mediocrity. And if you're not getting the results you want in life, if you're not performing at the level you know you're capable of, then it's time to upgrade your mental operating system. This isn't about positive thinking. This isn't about affirmations or visualization or any of that surface level stuff. This is about the fundamental differences in how elite performers and average people think, process information, and make decisions. This is about the mental architecture that creates sustained excellence. By the time you finish this video, you'll understand exactly how elite performers think. You'll know the specific mental patterns that separate champions from everyone else. You'll have the blueprint for rewiring your own mind for elite performance. And most importantly, you'll have the tools to start thinking like a winner, not just once in a while, but consistently, automatically, and permanently. But here's the warning. Once you understand these mental patterns, you can't unsee them. You'll start noticing them everywhere, in successful people, in failed people, in yourself. You'll realize that everything you've been told about success is incomplete. You'll understand that the real game is happening in your mind, and most people don't even know they're playing. The question is, are you ready to think like an elite performer? Are you ready to upgrade your mental operating system from mediocrity to excellence? Are you ready to develop the mental edge that separates winners from everyone else? Because elite performers don't just happen to be successful. They don't just get lucky. They don't just have good genetics or the right connections. They have something much more powerful. They have the mental edge. And that edge is what we're going to build together starting right now. Chapter 1. The Mindset Shift. How Elites View Reality. The first and most fundamental difference between elite performers and average people is how they perceive reality itself. This isn't about optimism versus pessimism. This isn't about positive thinking versus negative thinking. This is about something much deeper: how your mind interprets and processes the world around you. Average people see the world through the lens of limitations. They look at a situation and immediately focus on what's wrong, what's missing, what's impossible. They see obstacles, problems, and reasons why things won't work. Their default mental setting is scarcity. Not enough time, not enough money, not enough opportunities, not enough luck. Elite performers see the exact same world, but their minds process it completely differently. They see opportunities where others see obstacles. They see solutions where others see problems. They see possibilities where others see limitations. Their default mental setting is abundance. There's always a way. There's always an angle. There's always something that can be done. This isn't just a philosophical difference. This is a neurological difference. Brain scans of elite performers show different patterns of neural activity when they encounter challenges. Their brains literally light up differently. While average people's brains activate stress and fear centers when facing difficulties, elite performers' brains activate problem-solving and opportunity recognition centers. This difference starts with what psychologists call explanatory style: how you explain events to yourself. Average people have a pessimistic explanatory style. When something bad happens, they tell themselves it's permanent, pervasive, and personal. When something good happens, they tell themselves it's temporary, specific, and due to external factors. Elite performers have an optimistic explanatory style. When something bad happens, they tell themselves it's temporary, specific, and due to external factors. When something good happens, they tell themselves it's permanent, pervasive, and personal. This isn't self-delusion, it's strategic thinking. Let me give you a concrete example. Two entrepreneurs launch competing businesses. Both businesses fail after 6 months. The average entrepreneur tells himself, "I'm not cut out for this. I don't have what it takes. I always fail at everything important." The elite entrepreneur tells himself, "This particular approach didn't work in this specific market at this time. I learned valuable lessons that will help me succeed next time." Same event, completely different mental processing. And here's the crucial part. The elite entrepreneur's interpretation doesn't just make him feel better. It makes him more likely to succeed in the future. His brain is already looking for solutions, already planning the next attempt, already extracting lessons from the failure. The average entrepreneur's interpretation doesn't just make him feel worse. It makes him less likely to try again. His brain is focused on confirming his inadequacy, finding more evidence of his limitations, and protecting his ego from future disappointment. This is why elite performers get better with each failure, while average people get worse. It's not that elite performers don't feel disappointed or frustrated when they fail. They do. But their minds are programmed to extract value from failure, to use it as fuel for future success. Average people's minds are programmed to extract pain from failure, to use it as evidence of their limitations. Same events, completely different mental processing, completely different outcomes. Another crucial difference is how elite performers and average people view challenges. Average people see challenges as threats to their ego, their comfort, their security. They avoid challenges when possible, and when they can't avoid them, they approach them with anxiety and reluctance. Elite performers see challenges as opportunities to grow, to learn, to prove themselves. They actively seek out challenges, and when they encounter them, they approach them with excitement and anticipation. This is because their minds are programmed to associate challenge with growth, not with threat. This difference shows up in their language. Average people use language that reinforces limitation. I can't. I don't know how. It's too hard. I'm not good at this. Elite performers use language that reinforces possibility. I'll figure it out. I'll learn how. This is challenging, which means it's worth doing. I'm not good at this yet. That last word, yet, is crucial. It's the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. Average people believe their abilities are fixed, that they either have what it takes or they don't. Elite performers believe their abilities can be developed, that they can become whatever they need to become. This mindset difference affects everything. When an average person encounters a skill they don't have, they think, I'm not good at this, so I should avoid it or find someone else to do it. When an elite performer encounters a skill they don't have, they think, I'm not good at this yet, so I need to learn it or find someone who can teach me. Same situation, completely different mental processing. The average person's mind is focused on protecting their ego from exposure. The elite performer's mind is focused on acquiring whatever capabilities they need to succeed. Elite performers also have a different relationship with discomfort. Average people view discomfort as a signal that something is wrong, that they should stop, that they're not meant to be doing whatever they're doing. Elite performers view discomfort as a signal that they're growing, that they're pushing beyond their current limits, that they're on the right track. This is why elite performers can push through barriers that stop average people. When an average person feels uncomfortable, their mind interprets it as danger and activates avoidance behaviors. When an elite performer feels uncomfortable, their mind interprets it as progress and activates persistence behaviors. The most successful people in the world have trained their minds to reinterpret discomfort. They've learned to associate the feeling of being challenged, stretched, and pushed beyond their comfort zone with the feeling of moving toward their goals. They've literally rewired their brains to seek out what others avoid. This mindset shift doesn't happen overnight. It requires conscious effort and consistent practice. But once you understand how your mind currently processes challenges, failures, and discomfort, you can start to reprogram it. You can start to develop the mental patterns that create elite performance. The first step is awareness. Start paying attention to how your mind interprets events. When something doesn't go according to plan, what story does your mind tell you? When you encounter a challenge, what's your first instinct? When you feel uncomfortable, what does your mind want you to do? Just becoming aware of these patterns is the beginning of changing them. Because once you see how your mind currently works, you can start to train it to work differently. You can start to develop the mental edge that separates elite performers from everyone else. Chapter 2. The Decision Framework. Speed and Logic over Emotion. One of the most striking differences between elite performers and average people is how they make decisions. This isn't about making perfect decisions. Even elite performers make mistakes. This is about making decisions faster, with less internal resistance, and with better long-term outcomes. Average people make decisions emotionally. They base their choices on how they feel in the moment, what feels comfortable, what feels safe, what feels good. They avoid decisions that make them feel anxious, uncertain, or uncomfortable, even when those decisions would be beneficial in the long run. Elite performers make decisions logically. They base their choices on what will produce the best results, what will move them closer to their goals, what will create the most value. They're willing to make decisions that feel uncomfortable in the moment if those decisions serve their long-term objectives. This difference is rooted in something called temporal discounting. How much you value immediate rewards versus future rewards. Average people heavily discount future rewards in favor of immediate gratification. Elite performers are willing to sacrifice immediate gratification for greater future rewards. But it goes deeper than just delayed gratification. Elite performers have developed what I call a decision framework, a systematic approach to making choices that removes emotion from the equation and focuses on logical outcomes. Here's how the elite decision framework works. First, they clearly define the desired outcome. Before making any decision, they ask themselves, what am I trying to achieve? Not what feels good, not what seems easy, not what other people expect. What specific outcome am I trying to create? Average people often make decisions without clearly defining what they want. They make choices based on avoiding pain rather than moving toward pleasure. They make decisions to solve immediate problems rather than create long-term solutions. Elite performers are outcome-focused. Every decision is evaluated based on whether it moves them closer to or further from their desired outcome. This simple question, does this move me closer to my goal? Eliminates most of the emotional confusion that paralyzes average people. Second, they gather relevant information quickly. Elite performers don't make decisions in an information vacuum, but they also don't fall into the trap of analysis paralysis. They understand that perfect information is rarely available, and that the cost of waiting for perfect information often exceeds the benefit of having it. Average people either make decisions impulsively without enough information, or they delay decisions indefinitely while trying to gather perfect information. Both approaches lead to suboptimal outcomes. Elite performers have learned to identify the minimum viable information needed to make a good decision. They focus on the few key factors that will have the biggest impact on the outcome, rather than trying to analyze every possible variable. Third, they consider multiple options and their consequences. Elite performers don't just think about what they want to do. They think about what could go wrong, what could go right, and what they'll do in each scenario. They play out different possibilities in their minds before committing to a course of action. Average people often consider only one or two options, usually the most obvious ones. They don't think through the potential consequences of their decisions, which is why they're often surprised by the results they get. Elite performers use what's called scenario planning. They ask themselves, what's the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? What's the most likely scenario? And what will I do in each case? This doesn't mean they're pessimistic or overthinking. It means they're prepared. They've thought through the possibilities so they can respond quickly and effectively when things don't go according to plan. Fourth, they make decisions based on probability, not certainty. Elite performers understand that certainty is an illusion. They make decisions based on what's most likely to work, not what's guaranteed to work. Average people often delay decisions because they're waiting for certainty. They want to know for sure that their choice will work before they commit to it. This keeps them stuck in indecision because certainty rarely exists in important decisions. Elite performers are comfortable with uncertainty. They understand that making a good decision with incomplete information is better than making a perfect decision too late. They're willing to make decisions based on probability and adjust their course as they get more information. Fifth, they decide quickly and commit fully. Once elite performers have gone through their decision framework, they decide quickly and commit fully to their choice. They don't second-guess themselves, they don't look back, and they don't waste mental energy wondering if they made the right choice. Average people often make decisions slowly and then execute them half-heartedly. They second-guess themselves, they keep looking for alternatives, and they sabotage their own decisions with doubt and hesitation. Elite performers understand that a good decision executed with full commitment is better than a perfect decision executed with doubt and hesitation. They know that their ability to make their decisions work is often more important than the quality of the decisions themselves. This is why elite performers seem to have better judgment than average people. It's not that they make better decisions. It's that they execute their decisions more effectively. They commit fully to their choices, which gives them the best chance of success. The decision framework also includes what elite performers call decision hygiene, practices that keep their decision-making sharp and free from emotional contamination. They make important decisions when they're in peak mental state. not when they're tired, stressed, or emotional. They understand that the quality of their decisions is affected by their physical and mental condition. They avoid making decisions when they're experiencing strong emotions, whether positive or negative. They know that emotions can cloud judgment and lead to choices they'll regret later. They regularly review their past decisions to identify patterns and improve their decision-making process. They look for decisions that worked well and try to understand why. They also look for decisions that didn't work well and try to understand what they can learn from them. This continuous improvement approach means that elite performers get better at making decisions over time. Their decision-making becomes more refined, more accurate, and more effective. Average people often make the same decision-making mistakes over and over again because they don't systematically review and improve their process. They blame bad outcomes on bad luck rather than examining their decision-making process. Elite performers also understand the concept of decision fatigue, the idea that making decisions uses mental energy and that this energy is limited. They conserve their decision-making energy for the most important choices by automating or delegating less important decisions. This is why many elite performers have routines that eliminate small decisions from their daily lives. They wear similar clothes, eat similar foods, and follow similar schedules. This isn't because they lack creativity. It's because they're preserving their mental energy for the decisions that matter most. Average people often exhaust their decision-making energy on trivial choices, leaving them mentally depleted when they need to make important decisions. They spend mental energy deciding what to wear, what to eat, what to watch, and then wonder why they feel overwhelmed when facing bigger decisions. The decision framework of elite performers can be learned and implemented by anyone. It starts with recognizing how you currently make decisions and identifying the emotional patterns that interfere with logical decision-making. Start by paying attention to how you feel when you need to make a decision. Do you feel anxious, overwhelmed, excited, impatient? These emotions can provide valuable information, but they shouldn't drive your decision-making process. Next, start using the elite decision framework for small decisions. Practice defining your desired outcome, gathering relevant information quickly, considering multiple options, thinking in terms of probability rather than certainty, and committing fully to your choices. As you become more comfortable with this process, you can start applying it to bigger decisions. Over time, logical decision-making will become automatic, and you'll start getting better results from your choices. The goal isn't to eliminate emotion from your life. Emotions provide valuable information and motivation. The goal is to prevent emotions from overriding logic when you're making important decisions. Elite performers feel emotions just as strongly as everyone else, but they don't let those emotions control their choices. Chapter 3. The Focus Filter. What elite performers pay attention to. In our modern world, attention is the ultimate currency. What you focus on expands. What you ignore atrophies. Elite performers understand this principle better than anyone else, and they've developed sophisticated mental systems for directing their attention toward what matters most and filtering out everything else. The average person's attention is scattered, reactive, and largely unconscious. They pay attention to whatever is loudest, most urgent, or most emotionally stimulating. They get distracted by notifications, caught up in drama, and pulled into other people's priorities. Their attention is hijacked by whoever or whatever demands it most forcefully. Elite performers have developed what I call a focus filter, a mental system that automatically sorts incoming information into categories: essential, important, useful, or irrelevant. They've trained their minds to focus intensely on what matters and ignore everything else. This isn't about productivity hacks or time management techniques. This is about fundamentally rewiring how your brain processes information and allocates attention. It's about developing the mental discipline to focus on what will create the most value and ignore everything else. The first element of the elite focus filter is outcome-based attention. Elite performers don't just pay attention to what's interesting or urgent. They pay attention to what will help them achieve their desired outcomes. They've trained their minds to automatically ask, will paying attention to this help me achieve my goals? Average people pay attention to whatever captures their interest in the moment. They read news that makes them angry, watch videos that entertain them, and engage in conversations that feel good but don't lead anywhere. They consume information for emotional reasons, rather than strategic reasons. Elite performers consume information strategically. They pay attention to information that will help them make better decisions, improve their skills, or advance their objectives. They ignore information that doesn't serve their goals, no matter how interesting or entertaining it might be. This is why elite performers often seem to know less about current events, celebrity gossip, or popular culture than average people. It's not that they're uninformed, it's that they're selectively informed. They choose what to pay attention to based on its relevance to their goals. The second element of the elite focus filter is priority-based attention. Elite performers have developed the ability to distinguish between what's urgent and what's important, and they focus their attention on important tasks even when urgent tasks are demanding attention. Average people confuse urgency with importance. They pay attention to whatever feels most urgent, even if it's not particularly important. They respond to emails immediately, take phone calls whenever they ring, and drop everything to handle whatever crisis arises. Elite performers understand that urgent tasks are often other people's priorities, while important tasks are usually their own priorities. They've learned to say no to urgent requests that don't align with their important objectives. This requires developing what psychologists call cognitive control, the ability to resist automatic responses and maintain focus on chosen goals. Elite performers have trained their minds to pause before reacting to external demands and ask, is this more important than what I'm currently doing? The third element of the elite focus filter is depth-based attention. Elite performers don't just focus on the right things, they focus on them deeply. They've developed the ability to sustain intense concentration for extended periods, allowing them to produce higher quality work in less time. Average people engage in what's called shallow work. Tasks that can be performed while distracted, don't require deep thinking, and don't create much value. They multitask, check their phones constantly, and rarely engage in sustained, focused effort. Elite performers engage in what's called deep work. Tasks that require sustained concentration, push cognitive capabilities, and create significant value. They've trained their minds to enter states of flow where they can work for hours without distraction. This ability to sustain deep focus is like a muscle. It gets stronger with practice and weaker with neglect. Elite performers regularly practice focused attention, while average people regularly practice distracted attention. The fourth element of the elite focus filter is signal-based attention. Elite performers have learned to distinguish between signal and noise, between information that matters and information that doesn't. They focus their attention on signals that indicate opportunities, threats, or changes in their environment. Average people often pay attention to noise, information that's loud or emotionally stimulating, but doesn't actually matter. They get caught up in office gossip, social media drama, and news stories that don't affect their lives. Elite performers have trained their minds to filter out noise and focus on signals. They pay attention to trends in their industry, changes in their market, and feedback from their customers. They ignore distractions that don't provide actionable information. This requires developing what's called meta-attention, the ability to pay attention to what you're paying attention to. Elite performers regularly audit their attention patterns and make adjustments to ensure they're focusing on what matters most. The fifth element of the elite focus filter is strategic attention. Elite performers don't just focus on immediate tasks, They also allocate attention to long-term thinking, strategic planning, and future preparation. They balance current execution with future preparation. Average people focus almost exclusively on immediate tasks and short-term problems. They're so caught up in daily urgencies that they never step back to think strategically about their direction, their goals, or their long-term success. Elite performers regularly allocate time and attention to strategic thinking. They think about where they want to be in 5 years, what skills they need to develop, what opportunities they should pursue, and what threats they need to prepare for. This strategic attention allocation is what allows elite performers to stay ahead of changes in their field, anticipate opportunities before they become obvious, and prepare for challenges before they become crises. The elite focus filter also includes what's called attention recovery, the ability to quickly regain focus after being distracted. Elite performers understand that distraction is inevitable, but they've trained their minds to quickly return to their chosen focus point. Average people often get derailed by distractions and have difficulty returning to their original task. They lose momentum, forget where they were, and often abandon their work altogether. Elite performers have developed the ability to quickly assess distractions, handle them if necessary, and return to their original task with minimal loss of momentum. They've trained their minds to treat distractions as temporary interruptions rather than permanent diversions. Another crucial aspect of the elite focus filter is emotional attention management. Elite performers don't let their emotions dictate what they pay attention to. They can focus on important tasks, even when they're feeling anxious, bored, or frustrated. Average people often let their emotions control their attention. When they're anxious, they focus on whatever is making them anxious. When they're bored, they look for entertainment. When they're frustrated, they vent their frustration instead of focusing on solutions. Elite performers have learned to acknowledge their emotions without letting them control their attention. They can feel anxious about a presentation while still focusing on preparing for it. They can feel bored with a task while still completing it effectively. This emotional attention management is developed through practice and mindfulness. Elite performers regularly practice focusing on chosen tasks regardless of their emotional state, which builds their ability to maintain focus under any circumstances. The focus filter also includes what's called attention scheduling, the practice of consciously allocating attention to different types of tasks at different times. Elite performers understand that their attention has natural rhythms, and they schedule their most important work during their peak attention periods. Average people often work against their natural attention rhythms, trying to do creative work when they're tired or administrative tasks when they're energized. They waste their peak attention periods on low-value activities. Elite performers identify their peak attention periods and protect them fiercely. They schedule their most important, challenging, or creative work during these times and save routine tasks for when their attention is naturally lower. Developing an elite focus filter requires conscious effort and consistent practice. It starts with becoming aware of how you currently allocate your attention and identifying the patterns that serve you and the patterns that don't. Pay attention to what you pay attention to. Notice when you're focused and when you're distracted. Observe what captures your attention and what holds it. Identify the internal and external factors that affect your ability to focus. Once you understand your current attention patterns, you can start training your focus filter. Practice choosing what to focus on rather than letting external forces choose for you. Practice sustaining focus for longer periods. Practice returning to your chosen focus point after distractions. The goal isn't to eliminate all distractions. That's impossible in the modern world. The goal is to develop conscious control over your attention so that you can focus on what matters most when it matters most. Elite performers know that attention is their most valuable resource. They guard it, direct it, and invest it strategically. They understand that what they focus on becomes their reality, and they choose their reality consciously and deliberately. Chapter 4. The Resilience Code: How Elite Performers Handle Failure and Setbacks. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of success. Elite performers understand this at a fundamental level, while average people still believe that failure is something to be avoided at all costs. This difference in understanding failure is one of the most important distinctions between elite and average performance. Elite performers don't just tolerate failure. They expect it, prepare for it, and use it as fuel for future success. They've developed what I call the Resilience Code, a mental framework that transforms failure from a source of pain into a source of power. The Resilience Code starts with redefining failure itself. Average people define failure as evidence of their inadequacy, proof that they're not good enough, or confirmation that they should give up. Elite performers define failure as information about what doesn't work, feedback about their current approach, and data that will help them improve. This isn't just semantic wordplay. This is a fundamental difference in how the brain processes setbacks. When average people fail, their brains activate threat detection systems, stress responses, and protective mechanisms. When elite performers fail, their brains activate learning systems, problem-solving mechanisms, and improvement protocols. The first element of the Resilience Code is failure interpretation. Elite performers have trained their minds to interpret failure as temporary, specific, and external. They understand that failure is not a permanent condition, not a reflection of their overall ability, and not entirely under their control. Average people interpret failure as permanent, pervasive, and personal. They believe that failure reflects their fundamental inadequacy, affects all areas of their life, and is entirely their fault. This interpretation makes failure devastating and paralyzing. Elite performers use what psychologists call optimistic explanatory style. When they fail, they tell themselves, "This particular approach didn't work in this specific situation at this time. I can learn from this experience and try a different approach next time." Average people use pessimistic explanatory style. When they fail, they tell themselves, "I failed because I'm not good enough. I always fail at important things. I'll probably fail again next time." Same event, completely different mental processing. The elite performer's interpretation preserves their confidence and motivates them to try again. The average person's interpretation destroys their confidence and motivates them to give up. The second element of the Resilience Code is failure extraction. Elite performers have developed the ability to extract maximum value from every failure. They don't just move on from failure. They mine it for lessons, insights, and improvements. Average people try to forget about failure as quickly as possible. They avoid thinking about it, analyzing it, or learning from it. They want to move on and pretend it didn't happen. Elite performers do the opposite. They deliberately analyze their failures to understand what went wrong, what they can learn, and how they can improve. They ask themselves, "What did I learn from this? What would I do differently next time? How can I use this experience to get better?" This failure extraction process is systematic and thorough. Elite performers don't just casually think about their failures. They conduct formal postmortems, analyze their decision-making process, and identify specific areas for improvement. They also distinguish between different types of failures. Some failures are due to poor preparation, others are due to external circumstances, and others are due to trying something that was beyond their current capabilities. Each type of failure provides different lessons and requires different responses. The third element of the Resilience Code is failure recovery. Elite performers have developed the ability to bounce back from failure quickly and completely. They don't let failure affect their confidence, their motivation, or their willingness to take risks. Average people often experience what's called failure cascades, where one failure leads to decreased confidence, which leads to decreased performance, which leads to more failures. They get stuck in downward spirals that are difficult to escape. Elite performers have learned to break this cycle. They've developed mental routines that help them process failure, extract lessons, and return to peak performance quickly. They don't let failure linger in their minds or affect their future performance. This recovery process involves several steps. First, they acknowledge the failure and the emotions that come with it. They don't try to suppress or ignore their feelings. They recognize that disappointment, frustration, and even anger are natural responses to failure. Second, they analyze the failure objectively. They separate the facts from the emotions and identify what actually happened versus what they're telling themselves happened. They look for lessons and improvements without being self-critical or self-defeating. Third, they recommit to their goals and develop a new action plan. They don't let failure change their destination. They just adjust their route. They maintain their vision while adapting their strategy. Fourth, they take action quickly. They don't let failure paralyze them or make them hesitant. They understand that the best way to overcome failure is to start working toward success again immediately. The fourth element of the resilience code is failure immunity. Elite performers have developed the ability to maintain their performance even in the face of repeated failures. They don't let failure affect their confidence or their willingness to take risks. Average people often develop failure sensitivity, where each failure makes them more cautious, more hesitant, and more likely to avoid future risks. They become paralyzed by the fear of failing again. Elite performers develop failure immunity, where each failure actually makes them stronger, more resilient, and more willing to take calculated risks. They understand that failure is part of the process of achieving anything worthwhile. This immunity is developed through exposure and practice. Elite performers deliberately put themselves in situations where failure is possible, even likely. They understand that the only way to become comfortable with failure is to experience it regularly and learn to handle it effectively. They also reframe failure as feedback rather than judgment. They understand that failure is not a verdict on their worth as a person. It's information about the effectiveness of their current approach. The fifth element of the resilience code is failure leverage. Elite performers have learned to use failure as a competitive advantage. They understand that their willingness to fail, learn, and try again gives them an edge over competitors who are afraid to fail. Average people see failure as a liability, something that hurts their reputation, undermines their confidence, and reduces their chances of future success. They try to hide their failures and pretend they don't happen. Elite performers see failure as an asset, something that accelerates their learning, improves their performance, and differentiates them from competitors. They're open about their failures and use them as evidence of their willingness to take risks and push boundaries. This is why elite performers often fail more frequently than average people. They're attempting more difficult things, taking bigger risks, and pushing themselves beyond their comfort zones. But they also succeed more frequently because they learn faster and improve more quickly. The resilience code also includes what's called failure anticipation, the practice of mentally preparing for potential failures before they occur. Elite performers don't just hope for success, they prepare for failure. This isn't pessimism or negative thinking, it's strategic preparation. Elite performers think through potential failure scenarios, develop contingency plans, and mentally rehearse their responses to setbacks. This preparation makes them more resilient when failures actually occur. Average people often avoid thinking about potential failures because it makes them anxious. This avoidance leaves them unprepared when failures inevitably occur, making the failures more devastating and harder to recover from. Elite performers also practice what's called failure desensitization, deliberately exposing themselves to small failures in order to build their resilience for bigger failures. They understand that resilience is like a muscle that gets stronger with exercise. They might try new skills where they expect to fail initially, take on projects that are slightly beyond their current capabilities, or put themselves in situations where success is not guaranteed. This controlled exposure to failure builds their confidence and resilience. The resilience code transforms failure from an enemy into an ally. Elite performers understand that failure is not just inevitable, it's essential. You cannot achieve anything significant without failing multiple times along the way. The difference between elite performers and average people isn't that elite performers fail less, it's that they fail better. They extract more value from their failures, recover from them more quickly, and use them as stepping stones to greater success. Developing the resilience code requires changing your relationship with failure. Instead of seeing failure as a threat, start seeing it as information. Instead of avoiding failure, start embracing it as part of the learning process. Instead of being devastated by failure, start being curious about what it can teach you. This doesn't mean seeking out failure or being reckless with your decisions. It means understanding that failure is part of the price of attempting anything worthwhile and developing the mental tools to handle it effectively when it occurs. Elite performers know that their ability to handle failure is one of their greatest competitive advantages. While others are paralyzed by the fear of failure, they're free to take the risks necessary to achieve extraordinary success. Chapter 5. The Execution Engine: How Elite Performers Take Action. The gap between knowing and doing is where most people get stuck. They know what they should do. They understand the principles of success. They have good intentions and even detailed plans. But they don't execute. They don't take action. They don't follow through. Elite performers have solved this problem. They've developed what I call the execution engine, a mental system that converts ideas into action, plans into results, and intentions into outcomes. This isn't about motivation or willpower. It's about systematic, reliable action taking that works regardless of how you feel. The execution engine starts with understanding why most people fail to execute. It's not because they're lazy or unmotivated. It's because they haven't developed the mental systems necessary to convert thoughts into actions consistently and reliably. Average people rely on motivation to drive their actions. They wait until they feel inspired, energized, or excited before taking action. They depend on external factors, deadlines, pressure, consequences, to force them into action. Elite performers understand that motivation is unreliable. They don't wait for motivation. They create action systems that work regardless of their emotional state. They've learned to execute based on commitment, not feelings. The first element of the execution engine is action clarity. Elite performers don't just know what they want to achieve. They know exactly what actions they need to take to achieve it. They've broken down their goals into specific, actionable steps. Average people often have vague goals and unclear action steps. They know they want to be successful, but they don't know exactly what success looks like or what specific actions will create it. This vagueness makes it difficult to take consistent action. Elite performers practice what's called action specificity. They define exactly what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, and how they're going to do it. They eliminate ambiguity and create clear action pathways. Instead of saying, "I want to get in shape," an elite performer says, "I will do 30 minutes of cardiovascular exercise at 6 a.m. every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday." Instead of saying, "I want to grow my business," they say, "I will make 10 sales calls every day from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. This specificity eliminates decision fatigue and removes the mental friction that prevents action. When you know exactly what you need to do, when you need to do it, and how you need to do it, execution becomes automatic. The second element of the execution engine is action scheduling. Elite performers don't just decide what to do, they decide when to do it. They schedule their actions like appointments that cannot be broken. Average people often have good intentions, but no specific plan for when they'll execute them. They think, I'll do it when I have time, or I'll do it when I feel like it. This approach almost guarantees that the action won't happen. Elite performers understand that actions that aren't scheduled rarely happen. They treat their action commitments as seriously as they treat their appointments with other people. They put their actions on their calendar and protect that time fiercely. This scheduling principle applies to everything from daily habits to major projects. Elite performers don't just hope they'll find time to work on their goals. They create time by scheduling it in advance. The third element of the execution engine is action automation. Elite performers have developed the ability to take action automatically without conscious decision-making. They've turned their most important actions into habits that happen without thinking. Average people have to consciously decide to take action every time they need to do something. This creates decision fatigue and provides multiple opportunities for procrastination or avoidance. Elite performers have automated their most important actions through deliberate habit formation. They've identified the actions that will have the biggest impact on their success and turned them into automatic behaviors. This automation process involves what psychologists call implementation intentions, specific plans that link situational cues to actions. Instead of relying on motivation, elite performers rely on automatic responses to environmental triggers. For example, instead of relying on motivation to exercise, they might create an implementation intention. When I wake up and my feet hit the floor, I will immediately put on my workout clothes and head to the gym. The environmental trigger, feet hitting the floor, automatically prompts the action, putting on workout clothes. The fourth element of the execution engine is action persistence. Elite performers have developed the ability to continue taking action even when they don't see immediate results, when they encounter obstacles, or when they feel like giving up. Average people often stop taking action when they don't see quick results or when they encounter difficulties. They lose motivation, get discouraged, and abandon their efforts. Elite performers understand that meaningful results take time and that obstacles are part of the process. They've developed the mental resilience to continue taking action even when it's difficult or when progress seems slow. This persistence is not about mindless repetition. It's about intelligent persistence. Elite performers regularly evaluate their actions and adjust their approach when necessary, but they don't stop taking action altogether. They also understand the concept of compound action, the idea that small, consistent actions compound over time to create significant results. They're willing to take actions that don't pay off immediately because they understand the long-term benefits of consistency. The fifth element of the execution engine is action optimization. Elite performers don't just take action. They continuously improve their action-taking process. They look for ways to make their actions more effective, more efficient, and more sustainable. Average people often get stuck in ineffective action patterns. They keep doing the same things the same way even when they're not getting good results. They don't systematically improve their execution process. Elite performers regularly audit their actions and look for improvements. They ask themselves, what actions are producing the best results? What actions are wasting time or energy? How can I make my actions more effective? This optimization process involves tracking results, measuring progress, and experimenting with new approaches. Elite performers treat their actions like experiments, constantly testing and refining their approach. The execution engine also includes what's called action recovery, the ability to get back on track quickly when you've missed or skipped actions. Elite performers understand that perfect consistency is impossible, but they've developed the ability to recover quickly from missed actions. Average people often use missed actions as excuses to give up entirely. They think, I missed my workout yesterday, so I might as well skip the rest of the week. This all-or-nothing thinking leads to complete abandonment of their action plans. Elite performers have developed the ability to treat missed actions as isolated incidents rather than signs of failure. They get back on track immediately without beating themselves up or using missed actions as excuses to quit. Another crucial aspect of the execution engine is action environment design. Elite performers understand that their environment has a huge impact on their ability to take action. They deliberately design their environment to make good actions easier and bad actions harder. Average people often work against their environment, trying to rely on willpower to overcome environmental obstacles. They keep junk food in their kitchen while trying to eat healthy, or they keep their phone next to their bed while trying to sleep better. Elite performers design their environment to support their desired actions. They remove temptations, create helpful triggers, and structure their physical and digital environment to make success more likely. The execution engine also includes what's called action accountability. Systems that ensure actions are taken even when motivation is low or distractions are high. Elite performers don't rely on self-discipline alone. They create external accountability systems. This might involve working with a coach, joining a group of like-minded people, or creating public commitments that would be embarrassing to break. The key is creating consequences for not taking action and rewards for following through. Average people often try to rely on internal motivation alone, which is unreliable and inconsistent. Elite performers understand that external accountability systems are more reliable than internal motivation. Developing an execution engine requires systematically building each of these elements. Start by identifying the actions that will have the biggest impact on your goals. Make these actions specific, schedule them, and look for ways to automate them. Build persistence by committing to continue taking action even when you don't feel like it. Continuously optimize your actions by tracking results and experimenting with improvements. Design your environment to support your desired actions and create accountability systems to ensure follow-through. The goal is to create a systematic, reliable process for converting ideas into actions and actions into results. Elite performers don't hope for execution, they engineer it. They understand that execution is a skill that can be developed and refined over time. Chapter 6. The Growth Obsession. Why elite performers never stop improving. The moment you stop growing, you start dying. This isn't just a philosophical statement. It's a fundamental truth that elite performers understand at their core. While average people reach a certain level of competence and then plateau, elite performers develop what I call a growth obsession, an insatiable hunger for continuous improvement that drives them to keep getting better throughout their entire lives. This growth obsession isn't about perfectionism or never being satisfied with your achievements. It's about understanding that in a rapidly changing world, standing still is equivalent to moving backward. It's about recognizing that your current skills, knowledge, and abilities are either expanding or contracting. There is no steady state. Elite performers have developed a fundamentally different relationship with their own competence. Instead of seeing their current abilities as fixed assets, they see them as works in progress that can always be improved. Instead of defending their current level of performance, they're constantly looking for ways to transcend it. The first element of the growth obsession is learning velocity. Elite performers don't just learn, they learn faster than their competition. They've developed the ability to acquire new skills, knowledge, and capabilities at an accelerated pace. Average people learn reactively. They learn when they're forced to, when they encounter problems they can't solve with their current knowledge, or when external circumstances require them to acquire new skills. Their learning is sporadic, unfocused, and often inefficient. Elite performers learn proactively. They're constantly seeking out new knowledge, skills, and experiences that will make them more capable. They learn before they need to, anticipating future requirements, and preparing for opportunities that don't yet exist. This proactive learning gives them a significant competitive advantage. While others are scrambling to catch up when change occurs, elite performers are already prepared. They've anticipated the change and developed the capabilities needed to thrive in the new environment. Elite performers also learn more efficiently. They've developed systems and strategies that allow them to acquire new knowledge and skills faster than average people. They know how to identify the most important information, how to practice effectively, and how to transfer learning from one domain to another. The second element of the growth obsession is skill stacking. Elite performers understand that extraordinary results come from combining multiple skills in unique ways. They don't just try to become the best at one thing, they try to become uniquely valuable by combining several skills that others don't have. Average people often focus on developing one primary skill and neglect other areas. They become specialists in their field, but lack the complementary skills that would make them more valuable and more adaptable. Elite performers practice what's called skill stacking, deliberately developing multiple complementary skills that compound each other's value. They understand that being in the top 10% in several related skills is often more valuable than being in the top 1% in just one skill. For example, a software engineer might also develop skills in design, marketing, and communication. These complementary skills make them more valuable than an engineer who only knows how to code. They can work more effectively with different teams, understand business requirements better, and communicate their ideas more clearly. The third element of the growth obsession is edge seeking. Elite performers are constantly looking for areas where they can gain a competitive advantage. They're not satisfied with doing things the same way everyone else does them. They're always looking for better approaches, new techniques, and innovative solutions. Average people often follow conventional approaches and best practices. They do what everyone else is doing, which means they get the same results everyone else gets. They're not looking for edges. They're looking for acceptance and safety. Elite performers are edge seekers. They're constantly experimenting with new approaches, testing unconventional methods, and looking for ways to do things better than the standard approach. They understand that competitive advantages come from doing things differently, not from doing things the same way as everyone else. This edge-seeking behavior requires a willingness to fail, to experiment, and to go against conventional wisdom. Elite performers are comfortable with this uncertainty because they understand that edges are found at the boundaries of conventional thinking. The fourth element of the growth obsession is feedback optimization. Elite performers are obsessed with getting better feedback faster. They understand that feedback is the fuel of improvement, and they've developed sophisticated systems for getting high-quality feedback quickly and consistently. Average people often avoid feedback because it can be uncomfortable or threatening to their ego. They prefer to work in isolation, avoiding situations where their performance might be criticized or evaluated. Elite performers actively seek feedback from multiple sources. They want to know what they're doing well, what they're doing poorly, and what they can do to improve. They've learned to separate feedback from judgment and use it as information for improvement, rather than as a threat to their self-worth. They also understand that not all feedback is created equal. They've learned to identify the sources of feedback that are most accurate, most actionable, and most relevant to their goals. They focus on feedback that will help them improve, rather than feedback that just makes them feel good. The fifth element of the growth obsession is mental model upgrading. Elite performers understand that their thinking patterns and mental models determine their performance. They're constantly examining and upgrading their mental models to make them more accurate and more useful. Average people often operate with outdated or inaccurate mental models. They use thinking patterns that worked in the past, but are no longer effective. They don't systematically examine their beliefs, assumptions, and thinking patterns. Elite performers regularly audit their mental models and look for upgrades. They ask themselves, what am I assuming that might not be true? What beliefs am I holding that might be limiting my performance? What thinking patterns am I using that might be outdated? This mental model upgrading process involves exposing themselves to new perspectives, challenging their own assumptions, and being willing to change their minds when they encounter better information. The growth obsession also includes what's called compound learning, the practice of connecting new knowledge to existing knowledge in ways that create exponential rather than linear improvement. Elite performers don't just accumulate information, they integrate it in ways that create synergistic effects. Average people often learn in isolation, treating each new piece of knowledge as separate from everything else they know. They don't make connections between different domains or look for patterns across different areas of learning. Elite performers are connection makers. They look for ways to combine insights from different fields, apply lessons from one domain to another, and create new understanding by synthesizing different sources of knowledge. Another crucial aspect of the growth obsession is what's called deliberate practice, the specific type of practice that leads to improvement rather than just repetition. Elite performers don't just practice more, they practice better. Average people often engage in what's called naive practice, repeating the same actions over and over without focused attention on improvement. They confuse repetition with improvement and wonder why they plateau despite putting in time and effort. Elite performers engage in deliberate practice, focused, effortful practice that targets specific areas for improvement. They break down their performance into components, identify their weaknesses, and design specific exercises to address those weaknesses. This deliberate practice is often uncomfortable because it requires working at the edge of your current abilities. Elite performers are willing to accept this discomfort because they understand that improvement only happens when you push beyond your current limits. The growth obsession also includes what's called meta-learning, learning how to learn more effectively. Elite performers don't just focus on what they're learning, they also focus on how they're learning and look for ways to make their learning process more efficient and effective. Average people often use inefficient learning methods because they haven't examined their learning process. They might read without retention, practice without focus, or study without understanding. Elite performers systematically study their own learning process and look for improvements. They experiment with different learning methods, track their progress, and optimize their approach based on what works best for them. The growth obsession transforms learning from an occasional activity into a way of life. Elite performers don't just learn when they need to. They learn because they want to. They understand that their ability to learn and grow is their most valuable asset in a changing world. This doesn't mean they're never satisfied with their achievements or that they can't enjoy their successes. It means they understand that sustained success requires continuous improvement, and they've developed the systems and mindset necessary to keep growing throughout their lives. Developing a growth obsession requires changing your relationship with your own competence. Instead of seeing your current abilities as fixed, start seeing them as starting points for further development. Instead of defending your current performance, start looking for ways to transcend it. Elite performers know that their growth obsession is what separates them from the competition. While others are content with their current level of performance, they're constantly pushing beyond it. This gives them a sustained competitive advantage that compounds over time. Chapter 7. The Confidence Code. Building Unshakable Self-Belief. Confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. Elite performers understand this fundamental truth, while average people often wait for confidence to strike them like lightning. This difference in understanding how confidence works is one of the most important distinctions between elite and average performance. Elite performers have developed what I call the confidence code, a systematic approach to building and maintaining unshakable self-belief. This isn't about fake it till you make it positive thinking or empty affirmations. This is about creating genuine confidence based on evidence, preparation, and proven capability. The confidence code starts with understanding what confidence actually is. Confidence is not the absence of fear or doubt. It's the ability to act effectively despite fear and doubt. It's not about feeling invincible. It's about feeling capable of handling whatever challenges arise. Average people think confidence is a feeling that comes and goes based on external circumstances. They feel confident when things are going well and lose confidence when they encounter setbacks. Their confidence is fragile and unreliable. Elite performers understand that confidence is a skill that can be developed and strengthened. They've learned to build confidence systematically through preparation, practice, and progressive challenge. Their confidence is robust and resilient. The first element of the confidence code is evidence-based belief. Elite performers build their confidence on a foundation of evidence, proof that they can handle challenges, overcome obstacles, and achieve their goals. They don't just believe in themselves blindly. They believe in themselves based on demonstrated capability. Average people often have either inflated confidence based on nothing or deflated confidence based on selective attention to their failures. They either overestimate their abilities without evidence or underestimate their abilities despite evidence. Elite performers systematically collect evidence of their capabilities. They keep track of their successes, their improvements, and their ability to handle difficult situations. They build what's called a confidence bank account, a mental repository of evidence that supports their self-belief. This evidence-based approach makes their confidence more stable and reliable. When they encounter challenges or setbacks, they can draw on their evidence bank to maintain their belief in their ability to succeed. The second element of the confidence code is preparation-based security. Elite performers build confidence through thorough preparation. They understand that confidence comes from knowing you're as prepared as possible for whatever you're facing. Average people often try to wing it or rely on natural ability. They don't prepare thoroughly, which leaves them feeling uncertain and anxious when they face challenges. Their lack of preparation undermines their confidence. Elite performers are obsessive about preparation. They research, practice, plan, and rehearse until they feel ready for any scenario. This preparation gives them the security that comes from knowing they've done everything possible to succeed. This preparation-based confidence is particularly important in high-stakes situations. Elite performers don't just hope things will go well. They prepare for multiple scenarios and develop contingency plans. This preparation allows them to feel confident even in uncertain situations. The third element of the confidence code is competence-based certainty. Elite performers build confidence by systematically developing their competence. They understand that the best way to feel confident is to actually become more capable. Average people often try to feel confident without becoming more competent. They use positive self-talk, visualization, or other mental techniques to boost their confidence without actually improving their abilities. Elite performers focus on building actual competence. They develop their skills, expand their knowledge, and increase their capabilities. As their competence grows, their confidence naturally follows. This competence-based approach creates sustainable confidence that doesn't depend on external validation or temporary emotional states. When you know you're genuinely capable, you naturally feel confident. The fourth element of the confidence code is challenge-based growth. Elite performers build confidence by progressively taking on bigger challenges. They understand that confidence comes from proving to yourself that you can handle difficult situations. Average people often avoid challenges because they're afraid of failure or embarrassment. This avoidance keeps them in their comfort zone, but prevents them from building confidence through experience. Elite performers deliberately seek out challenges that are slightly beyond their current comfort zone. They understand that confidence is built through successfully navigating difficult situations, not through avoiding them. This challenge-based approach requires what's called optimal challenge, taking on challenges that are difficult enough to build confidence, but not so difficult that they're overwhelming. Elite performers have learned to calibrate their challenges to maximize confidence building. The fifth element of the confidence code is identity-based reinforcement. Elite performers build confidence by developing an identity as someone who can handle challenges and achieve goals. They see themselves as capable, resilient, and successful. Average people often have identities based on their limitations, their past failures, or their perceived inadequacies. They see themselves as people who struggle, who aren't lucky, or who don't have what it takes. Elite performers consciously develop empowering identities. They see themselves as problem solvers, as people who find ways to succeed, as individuals who can handle whatever comes their way. This identity becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that reinforces their confidence. This identity-based confidence is particularly powerful because it's self-reinforcing. When you see yourself as capable, you act in ways that demonstrate your capability, which reinforces your identity as a capable person. The confidence code also includes what's called confidence maintenance, the practice of protecting and preserving your confidence in the face of setbacks, criticism, and failure. Elite performers understand that confidence needs to be actively maintained. Average people often let their confidence be destroyed by single failures or negative feedback. They don't have systems for maintaining their confidence when things go wrong. Elite performers have developed confidence maintenance systems. They know how to process failure without letting it destroy their confidence. They understand how to handle criticism without letting it undermine their self-belief. This maintenance involves what's called confidence accounting, keeping track of both successes and failures, but weighting them appropriately. Elite performers don't ignore their failures, but they don't let failures outweigh their successes in their self-assessment. Another crucial aspect of the confidence code is what's called confidence transfer, the ability to apply confidence from one area to another. Elite performers understand that confidence in one domain can be leveraged to build confidence in other domains. Average people often compartmentalize their confidence, feeling confident in some areas, but not others. They don't recognize that confidence is a transferable skill. Elite performers look for ways to transfer confidence between different areas of their lives. If they're confident in their athletic abilities, they use that confidence to approach business challenges. If they're confident in their problem-solving skills, they apply that confidence to relationship challenges. The confidence code also includes what's called confidence calibration, the ability to accurately assess your capabilities and adjust your confidence accordingly. Elite performers are neither overconfident nor underconfident. They're appropriately confident. Average people often have poorly calibrated confidence. They're either overconfident in areas where they lack competence or underconfident in areas where they're actually quite capable. Elite performers regularly calibrate their confidence by honestly assessing their abilities and adjusting their self-belief accordingly. They work to build confidence in areas where they're underconfident and to develop humility in areas where they might be overconfident. This calibration process involves seeking feedback, testing their abilities, and honestly evaluating their performance. Elite performers want their confidence to be accurate, not just high. The confidence code also includes what's called confidence expression, the ability to demonstrate confidence through your behavior, communication, and presence. Elite performers understand that confidence is not just an internal state. It's something that needs to be expressed effectively. Average people often feel confident internally, but don't express it effectively. They might feel capable, but come across as uncertain or hesitant. This disconnect between internal confidence and external expression undermines their effectiveness. Elite performers have learned to express their confidence through their posture, their voice, their eye contact, and their communication style. They understand that confidence is contagious and that expressing confidence helps build more confidence. This expression of confidence is not about arrogance or false bravado. It's about authentic demonstration of your genuine capabilities and belief in yourself. Building the confidence code requires systematic work on each of these elements. Start by collecting evidence of your capabilities and preparing thoroughly for challenges. Focus on building actual competence rather than just trying to feel confident. Seek out appropriate challenges that will build your confidence through experience. Develop an empowering identity based on your strengths and capabilities. Create systems for maintaining your confidence during difficult times. The goal is to build sustainable, evidence-based confidence that doesn't depend on external validation or temporary emotional states. Elite performers know that confidence is one of their most valuable assets, and they invest the time and effort necessary to build it systematically. Chapter 8. The Pressure Protocol. How elite performers thrive under pressure. Pressure is not the enemy of performance. It's the revealer of it. Elite performers understand this fundamental truth, while average people see pressure as something to be avoided or endured. This difference in relationship with pressure is one of the most important distinctions between elite and average performance. Elite performers have developed what I call the pressure protocol, a systematic approach to not just handling pressure but actually using it to elevate their performance. They don't just survive under pressure, they thrive under it. The pressure protocol starts with understanding what pressure actually is. Pressure is not an external force that acts upon you. It's an internal response to external circumstances. Two people can face the exact same situation, and one will feel crushing pressure, while the other feels energizing challenge. Average people experience pressure as a threat to their performance, their reputation, or their well-being. Their bodies and minds interpret pressure as danger, which activates stress responses that actually impair their performance. Elite performers have learned to interpret pressure as an opportunity to demonstrate their capabilities. They see pressure as a sign that they're in an important situation where their skills matter. Their bodies and minds interpret pressure as excitement, which activates performance-enhancing responses. This difference in interpretation is not just mental, it's physiological. When average people experience pressure, their bodies release stress hormones that narrow their attention, reduce their cognitive flexibility, and impair their decision-making. When elite performers experience pressure, their bodies release performance hormones that sharpen their focus, increase their energy, and enhance their capabilities. The first element of the pressure protocol is pressure reframing. Elite performers have trained their minds to interpret pressure in ways that enhance rather than impair their performance. They've learned to see pressure as a privilege, an opportunity, and a sign of importance. Average people often interpret pressure as a sign that something bad might happen. They focus on what they might lose, what might go wrong, or how they might fail. This interpretation creates anxiety and impairs performance. Elite performers interpret pressure as a sign that they're in a position to make a difference. They focus on what they can achieve, what they can control, and how they can succeed. This interpretation creates excitement and enhances performance. This reframing is not just positive thinking, it's strategic thinking. Elite performers understand that their interpretation of pressure affects their performance, so they consciously choose interpretations that serve their goals. The second element of the pressure protocol is pressure preparation. Elite performers don't just hope they'll perform well under pressure. They systematically prepare for pressure situations. They understand that pressure performance is a skill that can be developed. Average people often avoid pressure situations until they're forced to face them. They don't prepare for pressure, which leaves them feeling overwhelmed and unprepared when pressure situations arise. Elite performers actively seek out pressure situations in controlled environments. They practice under pressure, rehearse high-stakes scenarios, and gradually expose themselves to increasing levels of pressure. This preparation builds their pressure tolerance and their pressure performance skills. This preparation includes both mental and physical components. Elite performers practice their mental responses to pressure through visualization and mental rehearsal. They also condition their bodies to function effectively under pressure through physical training and stress inoculation. The third element of the pressure protocol is pressure focus. Elite performers have developed the ability to maintain sharp focus under pressure. They understand that pressure often impairs performance by scattering attention and creating mental noise. Average people often experience pressure paralysis. They become overwhelmed by the situation and can't think clearly or act effectively. Their attention becomes scattered, and they lose focus on what actually matters. Elite performers have learned to use pressure to enhance their focus. They've developed the ability to filter out distractions, ignore irrelevant information, and concentrate intensely on what needs to be done. Pressure actually helps them focus more sharply on their objectives. This pressure focus is developed through practice and training. Elite performers regularly practice maintaining focus under artificial pressure, building their ability to concentrate despite distractions, stress, and high stakes. The fourth element of the pressure protocol is pressure routine. Elite performers have developed consistent pre-performance routines that help them manage pressure and optimize their performance state. These routines help them feel prepared and confident regardless of the external circumstances. Average people often have inconsistent or non-existent pre-performance routines. They approach pressure situations differently each time, which adds uncertainty and anxiety to already challenging situations. Elite performers have systematic routines that they follow before every important performance. These routines might include physical preparation, mental preparation, breathing exercises, visualization, or other activities that help them reach their optimal performance state. These routines serve multiple purposes. They help elite performers feel prepared and confident. They create familiarity and predictability in unfamiliar situations. They also help regulate their physiological and psychological responses to pressure. The fifth element of the pressure protocol is pressure recovery. Elite performers have developed the ability to recover quickly from pressure situations, whether they succeed or fail. They don't let pressure situations drain their energy or affect their long-term performance. Average people often experience pressure hangover. They feel drained, exhausted, or emotionally depleted after pressure situations. This affects their ability to perform in subsequent situations and can create a negative cycle. Elite performers have learned to recover quickly from pressure situations. They have post-performance routines that help them process the experience, extract lessons, and return to baseline quickly. They don't let pressure situations affect their long-term well-being or performance. This recovery process involves both physical and mental components. Elite performers know how to restore their energy, process their emotions, and prepare for future pressure situations. The pressure protocol also includes what's called pressure simulation, the practice of creating artificial pressure in training environments. Elite performers understand that you can't just hope to perform well under pressure. You have to practice performing under pressure. Average people often practice in comfortable, low-pressure environments and then wonder why they can't perform the same way when the stakes are high. They don't prepare for the psychological and physiological changes that occur under pressure. Elite performers regularly create artificial pressure in their training. They practice with time constraints in front of audiences, with consequences for failure, or with other pressure-inducing factors. This helps them develop the ability to perform under pressure. This pressure simulation is carefully designed to be challenging, but not overwhelming. Elite performers gradually increase the pressure in their training to build their tolerance and capability systematically. Another crucial aspect of the pressure protocol is what's called pressure partnership. The understanding that pressure and performance are partners, not enemies. Elite performers have learned to work with pressure rather than against it. Average people often try to eliminate pressure or pretend it doesn't exist. They use techniques to reduce pressure, avoid pressure situations, or numb themselves to pressure. This approach often backfires because it prevents them from developing pressure skills. Elite performers embrace pressure as a partner in performance. They understand that pressure can enhance their performance if they work with it rather than against it. They use pressure as fuel for their performance rather than seeing it as an obstacle. This partnership approach requires accepting pressure as a natural part of high-level performance. Elite performers don't try to eliminate pressure. They try to optimize their response to it. The pressure protocol also includes what's called pressure perspective, the ability to maintain appropriate perspective on pressure situations. Elite performers understand that pressure situations are opportunities to demonstrate their capabilities, not threats to their identity. Average people often lose perspective under pressure. They make pressure situations about their self-worth, their identity, or their future. This added psychological weight makes pressure situations more difficult to handle. Elite performers maintain perspective by remembering that pressure situations are just opportunities to apply their skills. They don't make pressure situations about who they are as people. They make them about what they can do as performers. This perspective helps them approach pressure situations with the right mindset. They're focused on performance, not on protecting their ego or managing their image. The pressure protocol transforms pressure from a performance inhibitor into a performance enhancer. Elite performers don't just tolerate pressure. They use it to access levels of performance that aren't available in low-pressure situations. This doesn't mean they enjoy pressure or seek it out unnecessarily. It means they understand that pressure is part of high-level performance, and they've developed the skills to use it effectively. Developing the pressure protocol requires systematic work on each of these elements. Start by changing how you interpret pressure situations. Practice performing under artificial pressure in controlled environments. Develop consistent pre-performance routines. The goal is to build your pressure performance skills so that you can access your best performance when it matters most. Elite performers know that their ability to perform under pressure is one of their most valuable competitive advantages. Chapter 9. The Energy Management System. Sustaining Peak Performance. Energy, not time, is the fundamental currency of high performance. Elite performers understand this principle, while average people continue to manage their time without considering their energy. This difference in understanding how energy works is one of the most important distinctions between sustained excellence and temporary success. Elite performers have developed what I call the energy management system, a comprehensive approach to optimizing their physical, mental, and emotional energy for sustained peak performance. They don't just work hard, they work smart by managing their energy strategically. The energy management system starts with understanding that energy is not unlimited. You have finite physical energy, finite mental energy, and finite emotional energy. How you invest this energy determines your performance and your results. Average people often treat energy like it's unlimited. They try to do everything, please everyone, and maintain high performance in all areas simultaneously. They don't prioritize their energy investment, which leads to burnout, mediocre performance, and inconsistent results. Elite performers understand that energy is their most valuable resource. They invest it strategically, protect it carefully, and optimize it continuously. They make conscious choices about where to spend their energy and where to conserve it. The first element of the energy management system is energy awareness. Elite performers have developed the ability to monitor their energy levels and understand their energy patterns. They know when they're at their peak, when they're declining, and when they need to recover. Average people often have poor energy awareness. They push through fatigue, ignore their body's signals, and don't recognize when their performance is declining due to energy depletion. They confuse being busy with being productive. Elite performers have learned to pay attention to their energy levels throughout the day. They notice when they're sharp and when they're sluggish. They understand their natural energy rhythms and work with them rather than against them. This energy awareness includes recognizing different types of energy depletion. Physical energy depletion feels different from mental energy depletion, which feels different from emotional energy depletion. Elite performers have learned to identify these different types of fatigue and respond appropriately. The second element of the energy management system is energy optimization. Elite performers don't just manage their energy, they optimize it. They look for ways to increase their energy capacity, improve their energy efficiency, and extend their energy sustainability. Average people often try to manage their energy through willpower and discipline. They push through fatigue, ignore their body's needs, and rely on external stimulants to maintain performance. This approach is unsustainable and leads to eventual burnout. Elite performers optimize their energy through systematic lifestyle design. They understand that their energy levels are affected by their sleep, nutrition, exercise, stress levels, and recovery practices. They optimize these factors to maximize their energy capacity. This optimization is not about perfection. It's about consistency. Elite performers focus on sustainable practices that they can maintain over time rather than extreme measures that work temporarily but can't be sustained. They understand that small, consistent optimizations compound over time to create significant improvements in energy levels and performance capacity. The third element of the energy management system is energy allocation. Elite performers strategically allocate their energy to their most important activities and outcomes. They understand that where they invest their energy determines their results. Average people often allocate their energy reactively. They spend energy on whatever demands their attention, whoever needs their help, or whatever crisis arises. They don't consciously choose where to invest their energy. Elite performers allocate their energy proactively. They identify their most important goals and activities, then allocate their best energy to these priorities. They protect their peak energy for their most important work. This energy allocation requires saying no to many good opportunities in order to say yes to the great ones. Elite performers understand that every yes to one thing is a no to something else, and they make these choices consciously. They also understand energy sequencing, the order in which they tackle different types of tasks. They do their most important, challenging, or creative work when their energy is highest, and save routine or administrative tasks for when their energy is lower. The fourth element of the energy management system is energy protection. Elite performers have developed the ability to protect their energy from unnecessary drains. They understand that energy leaks can be as damaging as energy expenditure. Average people often have multiple energy leaks that drain their vitality without producing any value. They engage in energy-draining activities, relationships, and commitments that don't serve their goals or well-being. Elite performers have learned to identify and eliminate energy drains. They set boundaries with energy-draining people, eliminate energy-draining activities, and protect themselves from energy-draining environments. This protection includes both external and internal energy drains. External drains include toxic relationships, unnecessary commitments, and energy-sapping environments. Internal drains include worry, regret, resentment, and other negative emotional states. Elite performers have developed the ability to manage their internal energy drains through mindfulness, emotional regulation, and mental discipline. They don't let negative emotions or thoughts consume their energy unnecessarily. The fifth element of the energy management system is energy recovery. Elite performers understand that recovery is not the absence of activity. It's the presence of restoration. They have developed systematic approaches to restoring their energy at multiple levels. Average people often confuse rest with recovery. They might take time off or reduce their activity level, but they don't engage in activities that actively restore their energy. They rest passively rather than recovering actively. Elite performers engage in active recovery practices that restore their physical, mental, and emotional energy. They understand that different types of energy require different types of recovery. Physical energy recovery might include sleep, nutrition, exercise, massage, or other body-based practices. Mental energy recovery might include meditation, nature exposure, creative activities, or mental rest. Emotional energy recovery might include social connection, gratitude practices, or meaningful activities. Elite performers schedule recovery time just as carefully as they schedule work time. They understand that recovery is not a luxury. It's a necessity for sustained high performance. The energy management system also includes what's called energy investment, the practice of investing energy now to create more energy later. Elite performers understand that some energy expenditures are investments that pay dividends over time. Average people often focus only on energy conservation, trying to minimize energy expenditure without considering the long-term benefits of strategic energy investment. Elite performers are willing to invest energy in activities that will increase their future energy capacity. They might invest energy in learning new skills, building relationships, creating systems, or improving their health, all of which pay energy dividends over time. This investment mindset helps them think long-term about their energy management, rather than just focusing on immediate energy conservation. Another crucial aspect of the energy management system is what's called energy alignment, ensuring that your energy investment aligns with your values, goals, and strengths. Elite performers understand that energy spent on aligned activities is more efficient and sustainable. Average people often spend energy on activities that don't align with their values or goals. They might work in jobs they hate, pursue goals that don't matter to them, or engage in activities that don't utilize their strengths. Elite performers have learned to align their energy investment with their authentic priorities. They spend energy on activities that matter to them, utilize their strengths, and move them toward their goals. This alignment creates what's called energy synergy, where the energy you invest in one area supports and enhances other areas of your life. When your energy is aligned, you experience less friction and more flow. The energy management system also includes what's called energy sustainability, the ability to maintain high performance over extended periods without burning out. Elite performers understand that peak performance is not about brief bursts of intensity. It's about sustained excellence. Average people often approach performance in unsustainable ways. They push themselves too hard for too long, ignore their body's signals, and eventually burn out or break down. Elite performers have learned to perform at sustainable levels. They understand their limits, respect their body's needs, and maintain practices that support long-term performance rather than just short-term results. This sustainability mindset helps them maintain their performance over years and decades, rather than just weeks or months. They're playing a long game that requires different strategies than short-term performance. The energy management system also includes what's called energy contagion, the understanding that energy is contagious and that the energy of people around you affects your own energy levels. Elite performers strategically manage their energy environment. Average people often underestimate the impact of other people's energy on their own energy levels. They tolerate energy-draining people and environments without recognizing the cost to their own performance. Elite performers have learned to surround themselves with energizing people and environments. They seek out positive, motivated, high-energy people who elevate their own energy levels. They also understand that they can influence other people's energy through their own energy management. By maintaining high energy levels, they can positively impact the energy of people around them. The energy management system transforms how you approach performance and productivity. Instead of trying to do more with the same energy, you learn to optimize your energy to achieve better results with less effort. This doesn't mean working less or being less ambitious. It means working smarter by understanding how energy works and managing it strategically. Elite performers often accomplish more than average people while feeling less stressed and more energized. Developing an energy management system requires systematic attention to each of these elements. Start by developing energy awareness. Pay attention to your energy patterns and learn to recognize when you're operating at different energy levels. Begin optimizing your energy through better sleep, nutrition, exercise, and stress management. Start allocating your energy more strategically by identifying your most important activities and protecting your peak energy for them. Eliminate energy drains where possible and develop active recovery practices. Think long-term about your energy investment and work to align your energy with your values and goals. The goal is to create a sustainable system for managing your energy that allows you to perform at your best consistently over time. Elite performers know that energy management is one of their most important skills, and they invest significant time and attention in developing it. Chapter 10. The Relationship Edge: How Elite Performers Build Strategic Connections. No one achieves greatness alone. Elite performers understand that success is fundamentally a team sport, while average people often believe they can succeed through individual effort alone. This difference in understanding the importance of relationships is one of the most crucial distinctions between elite and average performance. Elite performers have developed what I call the relationship edge, a strategic approach to building, maintaining, and leveraging relationships that accelerate their success. They don't just network, they build a constellation of mutually beneficial relationships that create exponential value. The relationship edge starts with understanding that relationships are not just nice to have, they're essential for achieving anything significant. Every major achievement involves other people, whether as collaborators, supporters, customers, or champions. Average people often view relationships as secondary to their technical skills or individual abilities. They focus on being good at their job and assume that performance alone will lead to success. They build relationships accidentally or superficially. Elite performers understand that relationships are a core competency. They invest time and energy in building relationships strategically, understanding that their network is often more valuable than their knowledge. The first element of the relationship edge is relationship intentionality. Elite performers don't build relationships by accident. They build them on purpose. They have clear objectives for their relationship building and specific strategies for achieving those objectives. Average people often build relationships randomly or reactively. They connect with people who are convenient, familiar, or similar to themselves. They don't think strategically about what types of relationships they need to achieve their goals. Elite performers think strategically about relationship building. They identify the types of people they need to connect with, the value they can provide to others, and the mutual benefits that can be created through strategic relationships. This intentionality doesn't mean being manipulative or transactional. It means being thoughtful about relationship building and focusing on creating genuine value for others while advancing your own objectives. The second element of the relationship edge is relationship quality over quantity. Elite performers focus on building deep, meaningful relationships rather than accumulating large numbers of superficial connections. Average people often confuse networking with relationship building. They collect business cards, connect on social media, and attend networking events, but they don't invest in building real relationships with the people they meet. Elite performers understand that one strong relationship is more valuable than dozens of weak connections. They focus on building relationships characterized by trust, mutual respect, and genuine value exchange. This quality focus requires investing time and energy in fewer relationships, but developing those relationships more deeply. Elite performers would rather have 10 strong relationships than 100 weak ones. The third element of the relationship edge is relationship value creation. Elite performers don't just ask for help, They consistently provide value to others. They understand that the best way to receive value is to give value first. Average people often approach relationships with a "what's in it for me" mentality. They focus on what they can get from relationships rather than what they can give. Elite performers approach relationships with a "what's in it for them" mentality. They look for ways to help others, solve problems, make connections, or provide value before they ask for anything in return. This value-first approach creates goodwill, trust, and reciprocity. When you consistently provide value to others, they become invested in your success and are more likely to help you when you need it. The fourth element of the relationship edge is relationship diversity. Elite performers build relationships across different industries, levels, backgrounds, and perspectives. They understand that diversity in their network creates more opportunities and insights. Average people often build relationships with people who are similar to themselves or who work in similar fields. They create echo chambers that reinforce their existing thinking and limit their opportunities. Elite performers intentionally build diverse networks that include people from different industries, different levels of experience, different backgrounds, and different perspectives. This diversity creates more opportunities for learning, collaboration, and innovation. This diversity also includes what's called weak tie relationships, connections to people who are not in your immediate circle, but who can provide access to different networks and opportunities. The fifth element of the relationship edge is relationship maintenance. Elite performers understand that relationships require ongoing investment and attention. They don't just build relationships, they maintain them over time. Average people often let relationships deteriorate through neglect. They connect with people when they need something, but don't maintain the relationship when they don't have immediate needs. Elite performers have systematic approaches to relationship maintenance. They stay in touch with their network regularly, provide ongoing value, and maintain visibility and connection, even when they don't have immediate needs. This maintenance includes what's called relationship gardening, regularly tending to your relationships through communication, value provision, and mutual support. The relationship edge also includes what's called relationship leverage, the ability to mobilize your network to achieve your objectives. Elite performers understand that their network is a multiplier of their individual capabilities. Average people often underutilize their relationships. They have connections, but don't know how to leverage them effectively. They're either too proud to ask for help or too unclear about what they need. Elite performers have learned to leverage their relationships strategically. They're clear about their objectives, specific about their needs, and strategic about who they approach for different types of help. This leverage is not about using people. It's about creating mutually beneficial situations where everyone wins. Elite performers look for ways to align their objectives with the interests of their network. Another crucial aspect of the relationship edge is what's called relationship reciprocity. The understanding that healthy relationships involve mutual benefit and support. Elite performers both give and receive value in their relationships. Average people often have imbalanced relationships where they either give too much without receiving or receive too much without giving. Both imbalances create unhealthy relationship dynamics. Elite performers work to create balanced relationships where both parties benefit. They keep track of the value they're providing and receiving, and they work to ensure that their relationships are mutually beneficial over time. This reciprocity creates sustainable relationships that can withstand the test of time and changing circumstances. The relationship edge also includes what's called relationship intelligence, the ability to understand and navigate the complex dynamics of relationships and social situations. Elite performers have developed sophisticated social intelligence. Average people often lack social intelligence. They don't understand the subtleties of relationship dynamics, the importance of timing in relationship building, or the nuances of social situations. Elite performers have developed the ability to read social situations, understand relationship dynamics, and navigate complex social environments. They understand when to push and when to pull, when to be direct and when to be subtle. This relationship intelligence is developed through experience, observation, and conscious study of human behavior and social dynamics. The relationship edge also includes what's called relationship systems, the tools, processes, and systems that elite performers use to manage their relationships effectively. Elite performers don't rely on memory alone to manage their relationships. Average people often have informal, inconsistent approaches to relationship management. They might remember some people and forget others, or they might not have systematic ways to stay in touch with their network. Elite performers have developed systems for managing their relationships. They might use CRM software, contact management systems, or other tools to track their relationships and manage their communications. These systems help them stay organized, maintain regular contact, and ensure that no important relationships fall through the cracks. The relationship edge also includes what's called relationship boundaries, the ability to maintain healthy boundaries in relationships while still being generous and supportive. Elite performers understand that boundaries are necessary for healthy relationships. Average people often have poor boundaries in their relationships. They might be too giving and get taken advantage of, or they might be too guarded and miss opportunities for connection. Elite performers have learned to maintain healthy boundaries that protect their time, energy, and resources while still allowing them to build meaningful relationships. They can be generous without being a pushover. These boundaries help them maintain relationships that are sustainable and mutually beneficial over time. Building the relationship edge requires systematic attention to each of these elements. Start by becoming more intentional about your relationship building. Identify the types of relationships you need to achieve your goals. Focus on building quality relationships rather than accumulating quantity. Look for ways to provide value to others before asking for value in return. Build diversity in your network and maintain your relationships over time. Develop your social intelligence and create systems for managing your relationships effectively. Maintain healthy boundaries while being generous and supportive. The goal is to build a network of relationships that accelerate your success while providing genuine value to others. Elite performers know that their relationships are one of their most valuable assets, and they invest accordingly. Chapter 11. The Innovation Mindset. How elite performers stay ahead of change. In a world that's changing at an unprecedented pace, the ability to innovate and adapt is not just an advantage, it's a survival skill. Elite performers understand that the future belongs to those who can create it, while average people wait for the future to happen to them. Elite performers have developed what I call the innovation mindset, a systematic approach to staying ahead of change by constantly questioning, experimenting, and improving. They don't just react to change, they create it. The innovation mindset starts with understanding that the status quo is not permanent. What works today may not work tomorrow. What's successful now may become obsolete later. Elite performers embrace this uncertainty as an opportunity rather than a threat. Average people often resist change because it threatens their comfort and security. They prefer predictable environments where they know the rules and can rely on past experience. They view change as a problem to be solved rather than an opportunity to be seized. Elite performers understand that change is the only constant. They've learned to be comfortable with uncertainty and to see change as a source of opportunity. They don't try to predict the future. They try to create it. The first element of the innovation mindset is curiosity cultivation. Elite performers have developed an insatiable curiosity about how things work, why things happen, and what might be possible. They ask questions that others don't ask and explore ideas that others don't explore. Average people often lose their natural curiosity as they get older. They become satisfied with their current understanding and stop asking questions. They accept things as they are rather than wondering how they could be different. Elite performers have maintained and developed their curiosity throughout their lives. They approach the world with a beginner's mind, always ready to learn something new or see something from a different perspective. This